We are the Writer's Hive. Today we're here to discuss plotting, pantsing, and where the lines blur. As I think we probably have all heard at this point, we usually identify people in the writing community as either plotters or pantsers, people that plan every detail of their book before they start writing, or people that sit down and just start writing. For a long time, at least I believed that you had to be one or the other. And I believe now we've all accepted that the line is blurred and there is a whole sliding spectrum between plotting everything out before you start writing and starting from scratch and just sitting down and writing. So today we're going to discuss where we all fall, how we identify in the plotting versus pantsing versus somewhere in between, kind of demystify the fact that you have to be one or the other. Amber, you want to go first today?
I'll go first.
Perfect.
So had you asked me this a year ago, I would have been hardcore pantser. That's just what I do. Now I've slid closer to planning. I don't think I'm fully a plotter, somewhere in between. I kind of like to think of what I do as roadmap. Like I create a roadmap, and once I have my roadmap, I can decide if I want to like veer off and check out the sites while I'm there. So I kind of discovery write as I go along, but I kind of plan out like an act at a time so that I know where I'm going. It's been working for me, but I'm still kind of under construction, coming up with my own kind of process.
For me, I would definitely put myself in the plotter camp. I used to identify with that wholeheartedly, a lot more rigid. But throughout the years, as I've spoken to a lot of different authors, I realized that I blur a little more towards discovery writing at certain points of my book. So I will definitely start with an outline. I use Save the Cat Writes a Novel beat sheets. I use Mastering Suspense Structure and Plot, which I recently found 2 years ago, I believe. I love using that roadmap. And I like to change the process up a little bit as I go. Usually, like my process will be, I'll do the beats, and then I will do more of a narrative outline. So I'll just basically write out the book in usually maybe 20,000 words or so. And then I will do a chapter by chapter outline where I can really break that down and add little cliffhangers. I like to add cliffhangers at the end of my chapters and just knowing where those beats end and if I need to add any more in between. But when it comes to the drafting process, I definitely use the outline as more of a roadmap, as Amber was talking about, making stops and things like that. It's not as rigid for me. I'll look at it, and if the characters, I'm not one of those that the characters, I can't control them. I know some people say that, but if the characters, if I think of something that they want to go off and do something else for a time, I will follow that trail. I'm not stuck to the outline. Most of the time it will lead to something better. So I'm not rigid on that process where like, if I can make something better, I will. And I'm not going to just live by the outline. So I do outline up front, and then I try to stay on the outline during my drafting process. And then I will veer off and discovery write if I need to. So that's where the lines blur a little bit for me.
I definitely started off as a planner. I thought that was just the way that you had to do it. The idea of pantsing when I first started writing was impossible to me. So I was the person with a notebook for each character, a notebook for plot. I had too much information and I got very lost in the process of planning as opposed to the process of writing. And that has changed for me a lot. So I do also use Save the Cat, and I do use Goal, Motivation, Conflict. I do use Mastering Suspense, other craft books as they come up. I do still structure most of my novels through a Save the Cat outline and condensed it into chapters. I will have a basic outline for every chapter. So I know what's going to happen in that chapter, and I basically just have plot point outlines all through my novel, and then I let my characters live through the plot. For me, that's the best way to do it because I tend to write more character-led stories. So I like to know where I need to be and then let my characters discover their way through that. But with the exception of a couple little character interactions that I know I really want to take place, or conversations I know want to take place, I kind of let them journey through the plot on their own. So I don't do anything like a super structured breakdown of my chapters. I think at the very most, through the first half of my book, I probably have 3 to 4 paragraphs on each chapter. of things that I know I want to happen. And then through the second half of my novel, when I begin writing, I probably have a paragraph for each chapter. And I reassess that when I reach my midway point. So I definitely have a sliding scale there where I lean more towards doing prep work in the beginning, especially with my character work and understanding my characters. I do a lot of that on the forefront, but then I let myself kind of discover a little bit as I go.
I wanted to jump off of what Julie said about GMC as well, and that triggered something for me. So as much as plotting as I do up front, I do some of these little outlining things when I get stuck in my books. I don't necessarily have writer's block, but when I do feel like something might be off, I will actually use GMC. So a lot of my plotting is mostly on plot. I really wait in terms of character development until I really dive into the book. And when I get to a point of where I'm stuck with a character and I don't really know them as well, I'll use GMC and I'll actually dive in a little more. So I think that these craft books, when they're more specifically outlining or prior to writing, can also be very helpful within the process of drafting or revising as well. And it's not necessarily knowing everything ahead of time to be able to do the writing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that me turning from a hardcore pantser and learning that I can plan was Save the Cat. And it really opened my eyes because I was under the assumption that either A, you just plot everything, every detail, or you pants. I thought that was the only way to go. And then for a plotter, I thought that you had to know every detail, have an outline like you did in school where it had like the A, 1, B, and then you had to follow it. You couldn't veer from it. And then learning that most plotters still discovery write to a certain extent opened my eyes, and I was like, oh, maybe I can start planning. So now I'm like a sliding scale, and I'm slowly getting more toward being a plotter.
Yeah, it's definitely important with aspiring authors as well, whether you're a young author or young writer or someone who is just very early in the process. There is no right way to do everything. There's, you have to question everything. There's a lot of advice out there from more of the loud people that say you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way, or you will not be successful. And plotting versus discovery writing is one of those things that people usually show polar opposites on, at least when they're talking on social media. No one really talks about the in-between. So if you're at all scared about the process, just sort of make your own, take little things take little bits of information from the different places you see and just maybe try it. If you've never written a book before, try writing something, try writing a short story with or without an outline. And then you can sort of, carve your own process in that sense and do what works best for you that will keep you going. Because a lot of the time, if you come up with certain advice and say you're a discovery writer and you didn't know that you could plot, you may not want to move forward. We're trying to demystify the process a little bit so that you can find your own process and whether that's plotting or not.
I don't necessarily believe in writer's block, but I do believe that one of the things that will cause that the most is trying to force yourself into a mold of what you think you should be doing. It's important and it takes a while. I mean, you've seen Amber talk about having a switch, and then I also had a switch where we came from two very different ends and are kind of starting to realize that we're somewhere more in the middle. You might not find what works for you the first time you sit down to write a book. It's a process of discovering what works and what doesn't, of learning more from different craft books or taking pieces of what people are saying and applying what you think will work for you. So be open to the idea that change is okay and change is good. You will grow and adapt and change the way that you write as you continue to write more. And I do think that it's healthy to lean into that and not keep yourself to a standard that you believe you should be at. But definitely enjoy the process. I don't know about you guys, but I've really enjoyed learning what doesn't and does work for me. More what does. It's been really interesting and really fun for me to figure out what really, really works for me. Because when it clicks, it just feels so good to sit down and be able to write and be like, oh, this is this is how I'm meant to do this thing, but you're not going to find that place unless you give yourself the freedom and permission to try different things. And that as a structure and as a concept to realize was incredibly freeing for me personally.
I think it's also good to remember that your process can change book by book as well, because let's say you have this idea for a contemporary romance and you pants your way through it, you discovery write, it works great because you know your characters and they just kind of do it. But then let's say your next book, you want to write a thriller. Thrillers are a lot harder to discovery write because you need to kind of know who done it, the twists and turns. And so now you try to pants it and it's not working. You can't figure out what's going on. And so each book could have a different process for you, and that's also okay to have book by book processes. Just try different things. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But as long as you're writing and learning and growing, it's not a waste of time.
I definitely agree. And as I mentioned, I use Save the Cat in mastering suspense, structure, and plot. I'm actually going to be using Libby Hawker's book, Take Off Your Pants. I read that last year, and it's a very quick book to get through. But her process really clicked with me. I'll mention again, having writer friends to talk about these things has really opened my eyes up to this. That structure that you may feel you need at the beginning as you evolve and grow, just keep your eyes open to new things. And if you get that, I really lead with my gut a lot. If I read something and I feel it in my gut, I'll try it out. There's no harm in doing that. It'll only develop your process even more, whether it's something you want to incorporate or not do at all.
Another reminder that writing does not need to be a solitary practice, that we are really trying to encourage a writing community to come together, to share advice, to share what works for them, which is what we're aiming to do with this series. Look for more videos like this coming soon so that we can try to encourage the writing community and become, if you will, a hive, a collective of information. Feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know where you fall in the spectrum of pantser to plotter and what works best for you. You never know who it might help. So I hope to see you down in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click subscribe so that you know when new videos like this go up, and click the notification bell as well. And join us next time here at the Writer's Hive.